Here we are at the Western Film Fair, and I'm looking at a Lassie comic book, which has been signed, not by Lassie, but by John Provost. John Provost has starred with a lot of Hollywood royalty, Grace Kelly, Bing Crosby, Robert Redford, all those folks. But your favorite co-star was more famous than all those big stars put together. Your favorite co-star was a four-legged collie named Lassie,
right.
and you played Timmy on The Lassie Show for 7 seasons. And thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you, Jim.
John and I met many years ago in Los Angeles at an event, and sort of a reunion for Lassie between you and Cloris Leachman. It was very pleasant, and your wife Laurie is very pleasant. She has her own business which handles actors, living legends, and so glad y'all could make the trip to be here. A lot of people know that when they hear stories of Hollywood, when somebody auditions for a part, and usually the big star, which is you, would audition co-stars and say, John, do you like this person? Do you like this person? You actually had to audition for Lassie.
That's right. When the producers and the directors and the writers, they said, yes, you're the kid we want. You have the look, and they knew I could act because of my previous work.
Right.
But they said, how do you get along with big dogs? And Lassie was a pretty good sized dog, and I was a little kid. And I had always been raised around animals and you know, all kinds. And so it was fine with me, but they wanted to make sure, because you couldn't fake that bond between the boy and the dog.
Right.
So Rudd Weatherwax, the owner of Lassie and trainer, had a 60-acre ranch outside of Los Angeles, and I went and lived on his ranch for about 4 days.
That's right.
So to see how Lassie and I got together, and it was a bonding experience. And so I always like to say that I got the job because Lassie gave me 2 paws up.
It's a good
I'm sorry,
audition.
I'm sorry. I had to steal that
I
one.
like it. Lassie is a female on TV.
Right.
But she was always played by a male.
Always male.
Now, why didn't you use females to play a female dog?
Well, for one thing, the males are larger, more colorful, more heroic looking.
Sure.
And when the females come into season, they lose their coat and they don't want to work.
Well, I've known some actresses like
Okay.
that. Yeah.
But then Rudd Weatherwax always said this, and I get in trouble for it, but I didn't say it. He
Go
did.
ahead.
That the males were smarter and easier to train than the females.
But, you know, now, a lot of people may forget, but Campbell Soup was the primary sponsor who hired you.
Right.
And you, look, I mean, people may dispute this, but you and Lassie pretty much put Campbell Soup on the map. I mean, I wanted to eat Campbell Soup when I saw, you know, Lassie and everything.
Sure.
And here's the thing. I mean, when your contract was up, Campbell said, oh, this is great. We want John back for another 3 years. And by that time, you'd done 7 seasons. And to everybody's surprise, you said, no thanks.
Right.
Why?
Well, you know, okay, Jim. Tommy Reddick, who played Jeff before I started the series, he had the same. He grew up and he said, "I'm just tired of playing this," and that happened with me with Lassie. When I turned 14, my 7 years was up, and I'm starting to go through puberty and looking at girls, and you know, I had enough of the dogs, and so
I can say something, but I won't.
And so, well, no, and so you know, I wanted to continue to work and continue to act because I enjoyed it. But my parents were good enough to say, John, it's up to you. You can go for 3 more years, or you can.
And you chose
work out
not
the
to.
door.
But you kept acting. You kept acting and very active.
It was, you know, you have to make changes and decisions, and that was one that I had to make at that time.
During the run of the show, in the summers, and we call it hiatus when you're not filming, you and Lassie would tour various cities for promotional purposes, and you would always try to go to a children's hospital or a hospital where there were children, you know, maybe with polio or severely injured. In fact, today we didn't get to meet the lady, but Mary Revis came up from Gastonia, who you had met in a hospital. She was in a wheelchair in 1961.
In 1961.
Why did
she was 14 years old, and I was, I believe, 11. I was 11. Yeah.
Today people would say, well, that's a nice gesture, but they don't think that in 1958, 59, 60, 61, this was a new thing.
Oh, and you know, you didn't, you know, see kids that had polio or anything like that on the streets. You didn't see a lot of handicapped people.
And you couldn't let a dog in a hospital.
Oh, no. I mean, it was way before there were therapy dogs. And, I mean, they didn't let dogs into hospitals, but they would let Timmy and Lassie in. And it was a lasting impression on me to see these kids that had these horrible illnesses. And when Lassie and I would walk into their room, they would forget where they were. And their eyes would light up. And it's like today I asked Mary, I said, well, you know, Mary, did they tell you ahead of time that Lassie and I were going to come and visit? And she said no. And I thought about that, and I was thinking, well, okay, that makes sense, because what if something came up?
And you couldn't get there.
And we couldn't get there. What a disappointment that would have been.
So it was a big surprise, and it meant a lot to them.
It meant a lot to them.
What did it mean to you?
It meant a lot to me. It really affected me. Later on in years, I became involved with an organization called Canine Companions for Independence.
Right. Now, what does that tell us? What that's about?
It supplies service dogs to people that have disabilities other than blindness, and I was on the and free of charge.
Right.
And I was on the board of governors for 25 years, and it's an incredible organization. And if anybody knows of somebody that might need a service dog or something, all they have to do is go to cci.org and check it
I'm
out.
going to write that down, cci.org. And you can also donate money, folks, because I think you and I talked some time ago about it, and you said you placed, what, 4,000 dogs?
About 4,000 teams.
And how much does it cost over a lifetime to do? And this is free of charge to the people who need it, but how much would it cost if they had to pay for it?
About $45,000 per dog.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate what you're doing with that organization. I think it's fantastic. You just got off the board, I think.
Yes,
recently.
I did. There was too much conflict, stuff going on. And after 25 years, you know, it was time. But I mean, I'm still a super supporter and spread the word.
Yeah. Your book is now in the second printing.
Correct.
It's available in paperback. And it's called Timmy's in the Well, right?
Right.
Which, of course, is a myth because you never fell in a well,
I
right?
never did. No, Timmy, you know, fell off cliffs, into rivers, into mine shafts, and you name it, but never in a well. But everybody knows that term.
Yeah.
And we have not a clue where it came
It's
from.
become a joke line on late night TV.
Oh, sure, yeah. Letterman and Leno, they say, you know, once a week.
And a lot of people, I want to mention, I should have probably done this at the head of the interview, but folks that don't realize this, who know you from Lassie, you did a whole slew of films before you ever got there. I mean, this guy was a star when he couldn't even talk and walk. You were a baby star.
Right. My first movie, I was not quite 3 years old, So Big, with Jane Wyman and Sterling Hayden, and I did have a line in it, So Big.
Yeah.
She asked, how big's my baby? And I said, so big.
So, I mean, it's just fascinating, and yet you're so well adjusted. You've made such a success of yourself. You've meant so much to so many people. A lot of child actors get into a lot of trouble. Why is that, and why didn't you fall into that?
Well, for one thing, my family were not Hollywood people. My father was from Mobile, Alabama, and my mom was from Southern Texas. And they met in Hollywood and got married in the 40s. And when Mom was growing up, her idol was Jane Wyman. And she read in the LA Times that Warner Brothers was looking for a 2 to 3 year old boy to be in this movie with Jane Wyman.
Wow.
And she thought if she took me on this audition, she was going to meet Jane Wyman and get her autograph. So Mom takes me. There's over 200 little boys and little girls whose moms had cut their hair to look like little boys.
Right.
I ended up getting the job. I didn't have an agent, anything, and got an agent that same day. And
no kid, you had to have an agent as a baby?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, you had to have representation.
Man, how can a baby take 10%? How can I mean?
Yeah,
you
well.
didn't even have a wallet by then. But did you love working at that young an age? I mean, did you know what you were doing?
You know, Jim, the first two movies, So Big and Country Girl with Bing Crosby and Grace Kelly, I was too young. I don't remember those movies
Back
at
from
all.
Eternity, though.
Oh, Back from Eternity and All Mine to Give and everything after that, I have, you know, great recollections of.
Yeah, fun career.
It was. It really was.
I just appreciate you. And I mentioned the book. I want people to buy the book, try to go online and buy the book, or go to the bookstore, order it through Amazon. And maybe one day you're going to do a cookbook, too. You've been thinking about that?
We're thinking about it. It's kind of on the back burner.
It'll only have
it's
recipes.
Simmering right now.
The recipes will only be made with Campbell's soup and dog food. John Provost, thanks for everything.
All right. Thank you, Jim.
See you, pal.
All right.